All right, so let's jump right in. We're talking about a story of a city that was pushed right to its breaking point. You've got this incredible clash of beliefs, big business, and just raw emotion. And it all threatened to tear the whole place apart. We're heading back to first century Ephesus, a real metropolis at a crossroads.
I want you to just picture this scene for a second. You've got the busy, normally orderly streets of one of the Roman Empire's greatest cities, and suddenly it's just total chaos. We're talking thousands of people all swept up in this wave of panic and rage, and they're all rushing together toward the city's great theater. This was the main stage for public life.
And once they get there, they're packed into this massive stone amphitheater, and they just start shouting. And get this. For 2 straight hours, they're chanting one single phrase over and over again. A massive, confused crowd just drowning out any attempt at reason. All you could hear was, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians."
So, what on earth could ignite that kind of fury in a city that was, by all accounts, prosperous and pretty sophisticated? Well, to get to the bottom of that explosion, we've got to understand the city itself. And even more importantly, we have to look at the one thing that was the very foundation of its identity and its entire economy.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the chaos, we're going to have to rewind the clock a bit. Let's take a look at the powerful forces that were really at play here in Ephesus. See, Ephesus wasn't just, any old city in the Roman Empire. No way. It was a massive hub for both trade and religion. Its whole identity, everything about it, was completely wrapped up in its role as the guardian, the official temple keeper, for its patron goddess, Artemis. And wow, what a temple it was. We're not talking about some local shrine. This thing was an architectural marvel, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was a world-famous destination. You could say it was the literal heart of the city, pulling in pilgrims, tourists, and, you guessed it, their money, from all over the Mediterranean. So here's the thing you have to understand about Ephesus. Worship wasn't just about faith. It was the engine of the local economy. I'm talking about a whole industry employing hundreds of skilled craftspeople built around making and selling these little silver shrines and souvenirs of the goddess to that constant stream of visitors. All right, so into this really stable, very prosperous ecosystem walks this new and totally disruptive force. A Christian preacher named Paul shows up in Ephesus, and the message he brings starts to radically reshape the city. Just think about the impact of that statement for a second. Gods made with hands are not gods. This wasn't just some abstract theological debate. For the craftsmen of Ephesus, this was a direct shot, an existential attack on the very foundation of how they made a living. Every single silver shrine they carefully crafted was suddenly being declared, worthless. And this right here, this really lays out the fundamental conflict, doesn't it? On one side, you have this tangible, visible, profitable religion. It's built on a world-famous temple and these beautiful silver idols you can hold in your hand. And on the other side, an invisible god, no temple, and a philosophy that threatens to make the entire Artemis economy totally obsolete. So here's the crucial turning point. One man, a silversmith named Demetrius, who was probably something like a trade union boss, saw this threat with crystal clarity. He started to notice that as Paul's influence was growing, sales of their Artemis shrines were starting to drop. For him, this wasn't just about faith anymore. This was about his bottom line. And so he decided he had to do something about it. So what does Demetrius do? He calls a big meeting with all his fellow craftsmen, and the speech he gives, it's really a masterclass in manipulation. He so skillfully blends their real economic fears with their religious pride and their civic duty. And that speech, that's the spark that ignites the citywide firestorm we saw right at the beginning. And just like that, the fury spills out into the streets. The mob grabs 2 of Paul's companions, and they just drag them into the theater. The whole scene just descends into pure chaos. In fact, we're told that most of the people there shouting had no idea why they were even there. So with the entire city right on the brink, a hero emerges, but from a really unlikely place, the local city government. It's the town clerk, or the Grammateus. He's a high-ranking city official, a respected guy whose job is to keep public records and maintain order. And he doesn't use force. Nope, he uses logic, not weapons. He stands up and gives this brilliant speech that totally de-escalates the whole thing in 4 simple steps. First, he kind of appeases their pride. Then, he calmly points out that, hey, no actual crime has been committed here. Third, he tells them to take it to the courts, to use the proper legal channels. And then, finally, he drops the hammer.
And it's this final warning that really does the trick. See, the threat of the Roman Empire getting involved, that was a big deal. Rome did not tolerate this kind of uprising, and they could punish the entire city and punish them severely. And just like that, the crowd goes silent. The clerk calmly dismisses what was basically an illegal assembly, and the riot is over. Just like that.
All right, so the mob goes home. The city calms down. But what was the lasting impact of this incredibly dramatic day? I mean, what did it all really mean in the long run?
This timeline really shows you just how quickly the whole situation spiraled out of control. You have 2 years of Paul's influence slowly growing, and then all that tension just boils over in one single chaotic day. And yeah, Paul does leave the city shortly after this, but you better believe the seeds of some profound change had been firmly planted.
So here's the really interesting takeaway. The riot wasn't actually a failure for the new Christian movement. In a strange way, it was proof of its success. It showed that this new idea wasn't just some philosophical threat anymore. It was a real, tangible, economic disruptor. It was powerful enough to challenge an industry that had been around for centuries. This was a huge moment, a pivotal clash between this new faith and the old establishment. And really, thanks to the cool head of one city official, it survived to see another day. You know, when you boil it all down, the story of the riot in Ephesus isn't just about ancient silversmiths and a preacher. It leaves us with this timeless question, one that societies have always struggled with. How do we handle profound disruptive change? When some new idea, or maybe a new technology, threatens an established economy and a culture that people hold really dear, is conflict inevitable? It's a question that feels just as real and relevant for us today as it was back then in the streets of that ancient city.